time for another movie review, and this time I'm going to do a ranking video, and we're looking at the top 10 movies from 1957. Yes, for many of you, you probably weren't even born, but I am telling you, as an old guy, I'm approaching my 70th birthday, these movies from the 50s, when I was a mere toddler, are exceptional. And there are two in here that I would consider to be in my top 20 movies of all time. So, promises. So anyway, let's get started. And the first movie is at number 10, of course, Wild Strawberries. Ingmar Bergman is responsible for the direction and the screenplay on this one, produced by Alan Eklund. Now, there will be a slide showing the details of the cast, and I'm going to also pop in a brief comment about the awards for this movie. In the cast anyway, briefly, Professor Isaac Borg is the lead character, and he's played by Victor Seastrom. Of course, subtitles for these movies. It's a Swedish movie. His daughter-in-law, Sarah, is played by Bibi Andersson, and Marianne, a woman who's worked with the Professor, is played by Ingrid Thulin. Also, a very famous Swedish actor, Max von Sydow, appears. He is Ackerman, but his part is quite small. Awards: the Golden Bear for Best Film for this particular movie. And the Golden Globes also selected this film as the best foreign film. But 1960, 3 years after it was released, don't ask me why. It was nominated for an Oscar for original screenplay as well, but the nomination was refused by the director Ingmar Bergman. I wonder why. Now, this movie, it's about a retired elderly doctor, and we see him going from his home at the beginning. He's going to the university at Lund to be honoured. But before he starts out, he has had a shocking and plainly depressing dream in which he sees his own mournless funeral cortege, and a few hours later, after recovering from the dream, we see him travelling with his daughter-in-law, and she tells him that she and her husband consider him as a cold and egotistical old man. Wow, let's cheer you up then. What follows are a series of actual and dream experiences with people and with ghosts and fantasies. It's a pretty heavy watch, really, but I got to enjoy it eventually, and I've watched it twice now. Ingmar Bergman's Wild Strawberries is considered one of his best, and so I would suggest that you get along to watch it. So to number 9 then, A Hatful of Rain. This was directed by Fred Zinnemann, screenplay by Michael Vincent Gazzo and Alfred Hayes, based on a play by Gazzo. In the cast, we have Don Murray, who plays Johnny Pope. Eve Marie Saint plays his wife, Celia Pope. Anthony Franciosi plays Polo Pope, Johnny's brother. And Lloyd Noland is Johnny's father, John Pope Sr. There are some other actors on the supporting role. They will be on a slide, of course. A quick word on the awards at the 1958 Oscars. There was a nomination for Best Picture in a leading role for Anthony Francioso, and the Golden Globes also nominations for Best Actress for Marie Saint, and Best Actor for Anthony Franciosi, and Best Director for Fred Zinnemann. Those, of course, were all nominations for drama. To the plot then. This is a tale of a family in crisis. Two sons, Johnny and Polo Pope, and Celia, Johnny's wife, plus their father, the boy's father, John Sr. The plot focuses on the tension created when the father returns to the city to his sons, and his wanting a loan he made to Johnny repaid. He holds Johnny in high esteem. Johnny was a war hero in Korea. but Johnny's in debt courtesy of his serious drug habit that has eaten up all the cash. Meanwhile, Polo, who's in a bit of a dead-end job in a bar and viewed as the black sheep by his father, has managed to help his brother out, unbeknown to his father. The film's very explicit about the problems of heroin addiction, and we see the reality of drug addiction on the street and its impact on the family, of course. Now, Eve Marie Saint gives a strong performance as the desperate wife trying to help her husband. The movie was often neglected at the time and ahead of its time, I felt, focusing on addiction in inner cities. It's really worth a watch. Suggest you get to look at it. Okay, let's get on to number 8 in my countdown, the top 10 movies from 1957. And at number 8, it's Bridge Over the River Kwai. Directed by David Lean, producer Sam Spiegel, screenwriters Michael Wilson and Carl Foreman, and based on a novel by Pierre Boulez. The cinematography is excellent by Jack Hilliard, and the cast, music by Malcolm Arnold. In the cast, the lead actors in this one are Alec Guinness, who plays Colonel Nicholson. He's the leader of the British prisoner of war group that we'll see in the movie. And Sessue Hayakawa, he's the commandant in the prisoner of war camp. He's Japanese, of course, and he plays the character Colonel Seto. Other significance in the cast: William Holden plays Commander Major Shears. He was previously in this camp but managed to escape, and he comes back towards the end of the movie to get involved in the explosion of the bridge over the river. And his boss is Jack Hawkins, Major Warden, his character. And there's a few others which will be in a slide. The Oscars, well, it swept the board here. It won for Best Picture, Best Director for Lean, Best Lead Actor for Guinness, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Cinematography, Best Music Score, and there was a nomination for Hayakawa as well. So let's have a little look at the plot then. This is David Lean's war epic. It subtly develops its themes about the irrationality of honour and the hypocrisy of Britain's class system without ever compromising its thrilling war narrative. We're at World War II. We're near the Burmese Siam border, as it was known then. Now it's called Thailand, of course, and it's based on a true story. The Japanese imperialist army are occupying Thailand and have constructed a prisoner of war camp and intend the prisoners to build a bridge over the River Kwai so that the Japanese can access into Burma, as it was known then, through the jungle. It's a bit of an epic. It stars Alec Guinness, William Holden and Jack Hawkins, and it's basically about the life within a prison setting whilst building this bridge. It's pretty gripping stuff, especially when former prisoner of war Holden returns to blow up the bridge after parachuting into Burma. The performances are 5-star, and we're going to have a little I'm basically saying you must get to watch this. So swiftly moving on to 7 then. This is Witness for the Prosecution, directed by Billy Wilder, who's also responsible for the script. Billy, of course, a tremendous run of movies in the 50s, some of which you might have seen: Double Indemnity, Stalag 17, and the one I really like, Sunset Boulevard. And he went on to make a few more after this. The screenwriters used an Agatha Christie play to lay out the script, and the cinematographer Russell Harlan particularly strong on this movie. There will be a slide, of course, with these details. Let's move on to the cast. and an excellent cast. In the lead role is Charles Laughton. He's Sir Wilfrid Roberts, and he's the barrister that we see in the Old Bailey. Tyrone Power plays Leonard Stephen Vole. He's been accused of murder. His wife Marlene Dietrich plays Christine Helmboller, and her performance on the sand is riveting. Elsa Lanchester is the unfortunate victim here, Miss Plimsoll, and there's a number of other characters, and it being on a slide as promised. Okay, this amazingly didn't get any recognition at any awards ceremony. I can't believe that, but I suppose it really reflects how fickle these awards ceremonies are. Brief plot details then. An ailing barrister, played by, of course, Laughton, can't resist the opportunity for one final flurry in the Old Bailey, defending a young man in post-war Britain. Wilder directs this enjoyable, clever courtroom drama. It's filled with trickery, twists, and an overdose of Charles Laughton's idiosyncrasies, and a highly charged but contrived ending. So make sure you catch that. Smart dialogues and enough excitement generated to keep the viewer alert throughout. Based on a play by Agatha Christie, so a lot of suspense, an excellent cast, and well, all I can say is it's in black and white, and get to watch it. So let's move on then to number 6 in my countdown, and my choice of movie for number 6 is Sayonara, directed by Joshua Logan, and the screenplay by Paul Osborne. It's based on a James Michener novel, and the production was by William Gotts. And in the cast, the impeccable Marlon Brando is Major Lloyd Ace Groover from the American military. He's a Green Beret or something, I'm not quite sure, but anyway, he's in the American forces, based in Korea, but he's on his way to Japan because the war is over. Patricia Owens plays Eileen Webster. This is a young woman who has been mentioned in passes of potentially being a future wife for the Major. James Garner is Captain Mike Bailey. He's also a military member who we get to meet. Martha Scott is Mrs. Webster. She's obviously the mother of Elaine. Miko Taki is Hana Oji. She is the Japanese young woman that becomes a romantic interest of Marlon Brando's character. And then we have Miyoshi Umeka, who's she's Katsumi Kelly, and her husband Red Buttons is Airman Joe Kelly, another military man, of course. And then there's a few others that will be in the slide. Okay, nominations for Oscar. There was quite a few for Best Motion Picture, Best Director for Logan, Best Actor for Brando, Adapted Screenplay got a nomination, Art Direction as well, Cinematography, Film Editing, and for the Winner's Circle, Red Buttons won the Best Supporting Actor, and Miyoshi Umeka got the Best Supporting Actress. And there was also winners for set decoration and best sound. So that just about covers the details of this movie. We're going to move on to the plot next. So to the plot then. James Michener's novel has mentioned about an American GI, Marlon Brando, who falls in love with a Japanese kabuki starlet played by Miko Taka. It's after the Korean War, and it feels a bit timeless because it has that feeling of cross cultures. The love affair made difficult here due to military rules and society's pressures, and that bizarre situation becomes more so because of Brando's histrionics. He captures an audience and makes the movie an absorbing watch. The film also has fine support from Buttons and Mishogi Umeki as another couple who marry. This, of course, provokes the military to attempt to transfer Buttons' character out of the country, and this leads to devastating consequences. As someone with a personal experience of being in a cross-cultural relationship, I felt the movie heightened one's emotions when these relationships were, and to some extent still are, frowned upon and often forbidden. It was also an education, seeing glimpses of Japanese society. It's an absolutely great watch, and I suggest you get to have a look at it. So moving on to 5 now, and this is The Gunfight at the OK Corral. Director John Sturges, very, very familiar with the Western genre, and he makes a damn good job of this. The screenwriters based the movie on The Killer, an article by George Sculling and Leon Uris. I haven't got the screenwriters down here. I must have overlooked that. Anyway, excellent cinematography from Charles B. Lang Jr. and the music by Dmitry Tiomkin. The cast, lead characters: Burt Lancaster plays Wyatt Earp, Kirk Douglas is John Doc Holliday, Rona Fleming plays Laura Dembo, and Jo Van Fleet is Doc Holliday's romantic interest, Kate Fisher. And then we have members of the Clinton gang. Lyle Becker plays Ike Clinton, Johnny Ringo is played by John Ireland, and there's a very young Dennis Hopper in this who plays young Billy Clanton, and of course the Earps are represented as well. And I noticed the Doctor from Star Trek, the TV show, DeForest Kelly, playing Bones. Well, here he's playing Morgan Earp. There will be a slide as ever, and early on we also see Lee Van Cleef, who was very familiar in Western circles. So that's a picture of the cast, and we're going to then move on now to a bit of the plot. So this 1957 American Western film is loosely based on the actual event which took place way back in 1881. The film directed by Sturges from a screenplay written by novelist Leon Elris. It was actually a remake of the 1939 film Frontier Marshal, which starred Randolph Scott, and it's regarded that movie as the definitive film of the gunfight story until this gunfight at OK Corral in 57. It's a classic story that it leads to that inevitable showdown involving the outlaw Clanton gang, and the law-abiding Earps, and with Holliday joining the Earps after earlier Marshall Earp had saved his skin as a gunslinger from a lynch mob. Douglas is absolutely superb in this movie, and the scene which I'm going to give you is a taste of that performance. And of course, wonderful actor, and he's featured in another film in this top 10, and more about that a bit later. So there we have it. Okay, we're moving on to number 4 now in my countdown, top movies from 1957, and at number 4, Until They Sail. This movie was directed by Robert Wise, screenwriters Robert Anderson, who based his screenplay on a story by James Michener. Cinematographer was Joseph Ruttenberg, and the music, David Rakskin. In the cast, and a very impressive cast headed by my favourite actor of all time, Paul Newman. He plays Major Jack Harding. And then we have 4 sisters. Gene Simmons plays Barbara Leslie Forbes. Joan Fontaine is Anne Leslie. Pippa Laurie is Delia Leslie. And lastly, in her debut, Sandra Dee, a very young Sandra Dee, is Evelyn Leslie. On the other side of the fence, the military, American military personnel, we have Charles Drake, yeah, that guy, he was a comic in the UK. He's Captain Richard Bates. Wally Cassell plays Phil Friskett, and Adam Kennedy is Delia's lover, Andy. This movie received no awards whatsoever. I can't believe that, but maybe they just don't really like Paul Newman. Anyway, let's get on to the plot. So to this plot then, it's a soap opera really, a love story involving four Kiwi sisters, from New Zealand of course, having wartime romances with US servicemen who are waiting to be shipped overseas to the war zone. And that issue delves into the questions about morality during wartime. Yeah, very spicy. Of course, though, it was 1957, so don't get too excited. It's set in New Zealand during World War II in Christchurch, which is on the South Island. And as I say, World War II is happening, and the war against the Japanese has begun, and that's why they've been posted out in backwaters of New Zealand. The sisters live on their own, and they're soon to be war widows as the film unfolds. The warm-hearted but proper Barbara Leslie Forbes, played by Simmons, and her three younger sisters, the prudish Anne, played by Joan Fontaine, the man-crazy Delia, played by Pippa Laurie, and the 14-year-old flirtatious youngest one named Evelyn, played by Dee, will certainly catch your eye. And loneliness, of course, is at the heart of all this. The different personalities that lock together romantically, that are brought out through the various emotions. It's fascinating seeing them unfold, wartime romances. And this was a focus of another film I saw recently, John Schlesinger's Yank, set in the UK just prior to the invasion, the Normandy invasion at the end of World War II. I do find these types of films insightful, and as to the impact of war on people who fear future loss and compensate with temporary security. Newman, as always, is awesome in this, and once again is a big reason why the film is in my top 10. There's a great courtroom drama at the end when he gives evidence. Moving on to 3 then, and this is The Knights of Cabiria, in Italian La Notte de Cabiria. This is the creation of the absolutely tremendous director Federico Fellini. It's produced by Dino De Laurentiis. It's of course a subtitled film that was shot in the streets of Rome. The cast, we've got Dualetto Mazzina. She plays Cabiria, and she is was in fact the real life wife of Fellini. Françoise Perrier is Oscar. Amedeo Nazari is the movie star. Aldo Silvani is the hypnotist, and Franca Mazza is Wanda, a friend of Cabiria. There will be a slide, of course, with all the details of the important people in this movie. As for its plot, well, it's a very mature theme, but it does involve prostitution. It won the Oscar for the best foreign film, and Messina won the best actress also at the Cannes Film Festival. So to the plot then. Cabiria is a wide-eyed waif, a streetwalker living in a poor section of Rome where she owns a little house. She has a bank account and she dreams of a miracle. We follow her nights and days. A boyfriend steals 40,000 lira from her at the beginning, and she nearly drowns because of his behaviour. A movie star on the Via Veneto takes her home with him, and at a local shrine she seeks the Madonna's intercession. And then she meets an accountant who's seen her hypnotised on a vaudeville stage, acting out her heart's longings. She's desperate to find a partner, one that would love her. Fellini captures all these mini adventures with his own unique style, and Messina is wonderful in this captivating performance. Kabira thinks she can waltz untouched through the horrors of her world if she shields herself with a comic persona. Anyway, it's absolutely tremendous, and bear with the subtitles. They're pretty easy to get a piece of, and you will get the rewards. So, continuing with my top 10 of movies for 1957, at number 2 is Paths of Glory. This movie was directed by Stanley Kubrick. He was also responsible for part of the writing alongside the screenplay, which was handled by Jim Thompson, Calder Willingham, and that was based on a Humphrey Cobb novel. So now you know. There's going to be a slide with this details. Just get on to the cast. In the lead role is Kirk Douglas. He plays Colonel Dax. He's a colonel in the French army. Ralph Meeker plays Corporal Paris. Adolphe Menjur is General George Brulard. And George Macready is General Paul Moreau. There's going to be a slide with all this on as well. Lots of army personnel. So no surprises that this is a movie about war. And the awards, well, are unbelievable really. The Oscars overlooked this film in its entirety. Not even a nomination. It did get a nomination at BAFTA in the UK for Best Film, but that was it. Absolutely shameful. This movie is one of my favourite movies of all time. And I'm going to go on to a bit of the plot now to give you a gist of what we're talking about. So this is a movie set in the First World War, about 1916 in France, and it's about the conflict between mainly the French and the German soldiers at the infamous part of France which was regarded as the centre of all the war activity in the 1914-1918 World War One. The film was banned in France for almost 20 years, and the US Army refused to show it on its release day. It was controversial to say the least, banned in many other European countries at the time. It's very much an anti-war film, this, and I consider it to be the best ever made. Kubrick does a great job in the script, and the script goes a long way to criticising the role of the French military command in this part of World War One. It focuses on initially on the French in the trenches as they are about to try and capture an anthill, following orders by the high command, who are sitting in their comfy chateaus on the hill. In charge of the troops, however, is Colonel Dax, played by Kirk Douglas, and he is seen right at the beginning going down the trench and basically inspecting his troops, and then we see him blow his whistle and away they go across no man's land. This piece of land is exactly what it is. It wasn't owned by either country, and it was the first part of land that was used to fight the battle and to try and acquire ground such that one could consider one to be winning. It's a fruitless task, however, and this is depicted by the nightmare of death and carnage that we witness in these early frames. Shortly after that, because it's a very short film, only 88 minutes, it shifts attention to the action taking place in a military courtroom, the court-martial, where 3 randomly picked soldiers are selected to face charges of cowardice in the face of the enemy. We'll see early on with that initial frame how many of the soldiers U-turn and run back to the trenches because they don't want to die, because certain death is likely to happen, not likely, certain to happen if they continue moving forward. We then actually move on to the execution of these three soldiers in all its starkness. The battle scenes early on are played very much like a documentary, with striking attention to details of life in the trenches and how the men were confined to such dark and squalid circumstances. And this is contrasted, as I say, with the staff officers that we see in that luxury chateau. This is very much Kubrick's masterpiece, his first huge impact, I would suggest, although he had made a couple of other movies that are highly regarded. But it hits at the insanity of war as its theme. I personally think it's the greatest movie depicting war that I've ever seen, and Douglas is absolutely superb, and he was also responsible for some of the funding for this, so I'm led to believe. This was basically Kubrick's first masterpiece. I have watched this movie on 4 occasions now, and every time I think about it I sort of want to relive it. And there's a tremendous final scene which I won't spoil you with, but I suggest you get to watch it because it is gripping from the first frame to the last. So finally I've reached my number one movie for 1957. Of course I didn't watch these movies in 1957. I watched them when I was a bit older. I was only 3 when these were released. But anyway, 12 Angry Men is my choice as number one. It's directed by Sidney Lumet. The screenplay is by Reginald Rose, and both of the gentlemen above were involved in the production. The cinematography, Boris Kaufman, and it was edited by Carl Lerner, and music by Kenyon Hopkins. In the cast, and of course 12 jurors in this courtroom drama, and I'll go through them briefly. There will be a slide. They are Henry Fonda, Martin Balsam, John Fiedler, Lee J. Cobb, E.J. Marshall, Jack Klugman, Jack Warner, Joseph Sweeney, George Voskovich, and Robert Webber. As to the awards, nominations at the Oscars for Best Picture, Best Director for Lumet, and Best Adapted Screenplay for Reginald Rose. At the Berlin Film Festival, Lumet won the Golden Bear, and at the Golden Globes Awards, it was nominated for Best Motion Picture. So that about sums that up. I'm going to move on to the plot now. So, Sidney Lumet's adaptation of 12 Angry Men. Well, Rose's screenplay, and he also wrote the original show, is a masterpiece of intense focus, unfolding almost entirely within a jury room and the attached bathroom. It follows the tense deliberations of a jury considering an apparently open and shut case. A Puerto Rican teenager is accused of killing his father. 2 witnesses place him at the scene, and one says she saw the killing. If found guilty, he will be sent to the electric chair. 11 of the 12 jurors immediately vote guilty, but one, number 8, played by Fonda, believes that they owe it to the boy to at least deliberate on the possibilities of innocence. The film explores the fallout and personality conflicts that erupt as the men attempt to break the deadlock. We learn about all 12 men, their beliefs, their nuances, their bigotry, their sensitivity, and their life experiences. It's a melting pot of human personality, and Lumet's direction is as good as it gets. Top-notch acting across the board from the fine cast as we witness a process that draws on all facets of human behaviour as the tide turns from guilty to not guilty. I have watched this a number of times, and I would suggest that you do so. It's a movie that remains in my top 20 of all time. Sidney Lumet, absolutely incredible director. I'm going to probably watch it again soon, but it's my number one movie from 1957. if you do nothing else, just get to watch this gem.